Hey guys, this is Colby with SDS Arms, and today I'm going to show you how to swap out your MAC-5 and MAC-5K extractor spring. It doesn't matter if you have a MAC-5 or MAC-5K, the process is exactly the same, and this little tiny inexpensive spring can be the fix to some of your issues if you're having any, normally around the 3,000 to 4,000 round mark. So if you started to see a sudden drop off in reliability like extraction failures or erratic ejection, then this little tiny spring might be the culprit. Let's get into it. All right, so first things first, swapping out your extractor spring, you are going to need an extractor spring. You can get these on a few different websites online, and they are very inexpensive. I do recommend buying a few of them and just keeping them in a range bag with your MAC-5 or MAC-5K, along with a pick tool like this, because in that case, you can just pop them out in the field and then throw in a new one and go back at it. So I recommend a pick tool that has a small enough tip that it can actually go inside of the loop on the extractor spring. So really, these are the only two things you need. A hammer, like just a small hammer, and a punch are kind of quality of life items. They just make the process a little bit easier if you have a really tight spring. All right, so here I got my MAC-5. It has that new UTG extended handguard on it, which is really cool. So this specific gun, I think I've ran like 6,000 rounds through it. And once I break it down and show you the bullet, you're gonna see what I'm talking about. This thing is super, super dirty. So the first thing you're gonna wanna do, of course, make sure the gun is completely clear. And I mean, just look in that chamber. You can't even recognize the copper color on that extractor spring anymore. That's ridiculous. But I started to see some failure to extracts, and I knew that, okay, it's probably time to replace that extractor spring. So we're gonna pop out this rear pin right here. There we go, and then pop out that front pin. And then just take your brace or your end cap off or your stock, and then your lower. There we go. And then I'm just gonna pull my bolt out. All right, ready for this carbon reveal? Sheesh. That's pretty rough. There's barely an ounce of silver on that anymore. So you're gonna take your bolt head off. There we go. And you can kind of just set your bolt carrier to the side. If yours is as dirty as mine, I would say probably clean it and probably lubricate it. So yeah, you just need your bolt head isolated, and then now we are ready to remove that extractor spring. So I'm going to remove my extractor spring. I just wanted to show you. That is the color it should be, and that is the color that it is. So I'm gonna go ahead and clean this bolt off, and then I'm gonna show you how to remove this extractor spring. Now, removing your extractor spring is actually really good because then you can remove your extractor and clean under there, get all that carbon that's built up that you haven't been able to get under there. And then you can also inspect your extractor claw to make sure that there's no gouges or anything like that, and that it's all one smooth curve in that extractor claw. All right, so now I have, I guess, partially cleaned the bolt. Looks a little bit better than it did. Now I'm gonna show you how to remove that extractor spring. This is where you're gonna need your pick tool. You definitely want a pick tool that has a fine edge on the front of it because it's easier to get under this spring. So this is probably gonna take a few tries. It is under just a little bit of tension. So I'm gonna try to just pry up like that and then rotate. So see how it was sitting flat and then now I've kind of rotated it. That's the easiest way to get it out. If you're having more trouble and you don't have as fine of a pick, you can just kind of reach in here and bend upward and pull it out. And so now I'm just gonna pull it the rest of the way. I'll rotate a little bit more. I'll pull my pick out just a little bit. Rotate a little bit more. Once it's upside down, you should be able to just pull it out like that. And so there is your extractor spring channel that runs along this. I'm gonna take that old extractor spring, throw it off to the side, and then there is your extractor and then just your bolt head. Now, one disclaimer, do not reuse an old extractor spring for obvious reasons. If you're replacing it, the force that it takes to pull it out of this channel already bends it out of spec. So I definitely don't recommend reusing an extractor spring, just toss them. I almost had to whip out the dental tool on this thing, it was ridiculous. So mainly just clean under the claw right here and scrape under there if you need to, because there's gonna be a lot of built up carbon. And then also make sure that there's no gouges on the top of that claw. just because the gouges are going to cause failures to extract and kind of weird ejection. So just make sure there's no gouges. So the next thing that we're going to clean is right in here. So normally I'll take a few Q-tips and get in there. And then also if I need to, I'll take my pick tool and scrape it, because you can see, I mean, I'll do it real quick. Look how much carbon builds up under there. And so in order for your extractor to freely move the way it needs to over the rim of the casing and everything, this area needs to be clean, because this is what's going to lock your extractor into place if you don't clean that area. And then also clean around here too, since your extractor spring is missing. Pretty much everywhere that you couldn't otherwise access on your bolt head, you should probably just go ahead and clean, since you're taking out your extractor spring. So I'm going to go ahead and clean that, and then I'll be back in a second. Okay, so this is pretty much as clean as I could get it without an ultrasonic cleaner. And the main thing that you're looking for here is when you pop your extractor in there, it should freely go in and just drop right out without an extractor spring. And that tells you that there's no binding or anything on the sides where carbon is built up and would prevent free movement of the extractor. So at this point, I'm going to go ahead and pop my extractor in there, and then I'm going to show you how to install your new extractor spring. All right, so at this point, take your bolt and your new extractor spring with the hump downwards, and you're just going to want to stick it in here and kind of just push it as far in as you can. Make sure it's not tilted or anything. It should be sitting just like that. And then this is where a bench block comes in handy, but you can also do this with like the side of a table. So you're going to want to push it like that. And so it'll probably end up like this. And then this is where the side of a table or a bench block is going to come in handy, because you want to get something just touching the extractor spring but not the extractor to push it up. So what I'm going to do is put it up against this bench block, and there we go. So as you can see, it's kind of tilted a little bit. What I'm going to do in this situation, and this happens kind of frequently, is you don't get it perfect. You just want to rotate it just a little bit. There we go. So once it's sitting in there like that, you are good to go. Now, another thing, and this is why I brought up a hammer and a punch, is if you can't get it with the side of a table or something like that, what you can do, you can lightly put your punch on the edge of the extractor spring and just tap it in there. But in this case, obviously I don't need to do that because my extractor spring is seated properly. For reinstallation, just take your locking piece here. It'll have your firing pin and your firing pin spring. You're going to want to stick it with the lug facing downward, push it in, and then rotate it just slightly, kind of at like a 45-degree angle. And then take your bolt head with this roll pin right here upright, push it on there, and then rotate it. Once you hear that click, which is actually this little spring right here locking into the side of the locking piece, then your bolt is reassembled. All right, so now I'm going to take my bolt and put it back in my receiver. If your rollers are expanded out like this in the locked position, you're not going to be able to put the bolt in. So just push your bolt head forward, and then it'll go in just fine. Then take your lower trigger housing, drop that on there. Small pin up front, and then big pin in the back. There we go. All right, last but not least is putting on your stock brace or end cap. So what I like to do is I like to put this part of the recoil spring rod in this divot right here. I don't really know that it does anything, but to me, I feel like it's good to just line it up and then go ahead and put this on there. And then I'm just gonna smack it. And then as you can see, that hole's lined up. I'm gonna take my rear pin right here. There we go. And then just hammer it in. So now that you've done that, your extractor spring has been replaced. And as you can see, compared to before, you can now see that that extractor spring is actually copper and the bolt is not black. So I'm gonna run this a lot more. We're gonna see how long this extractor spring lasts. The last one was quite a while, as you could tell by all the carbon and everything like that. So I'm gonna get this back out to the range and we're gonna run tons more rounds through it just to kind of torture test it. All right, guys, if you made it to the end of the video, we just wanted to say thank you for Mac and SDS Arms for supporting our products and supporting our channel. Without you all, we wouldn't be able to release cool stuff like the MAC-5 and MAC-5K. Definitely stick around for more tips and tricks on all of our guns and stay up to date with all things SDS Arms, because at SDS Arms, we're always releasing something cool. So again, thank you guys for watching, and we hope to see you in the next one.